On this day, my brethren, with the whole church, we think about our brethren far from home who are proclaiming the gospel all over the world, both by their words and teaching and by their actions. If one goes down the road to Dargan Park, which is actually in this parish, and goes into the oratory there, and if one looks carefully at the pictures framed at the back, one can see descriptions of martyrdom, some pretty awful. They were good Irish people who went here in generous spirit. But martyrdom has always been part of the package, at least in the first evangelization. Yesterday we had the case of the Jesuits of North America in the 1600s, 1647, 1649, thereabouts. The names remembered normally are those of Jean de Brébeuf and Isaac Jogues. And the annals of the Jesuits indicate that their martyrdom was about the worst ever recorded in the history of Christian martyrdom. Nothing, no niceties were spared. Young men going to hell. That has often been the case. It was there already in the early church. I mentioned Isaac Jogues. As it happens, I feel something in common with those two because they were trained at Rouen, which had a part in my life. That's another story. Actually, I mentioned it since I'm in passing. It was there that I heard a sermon which changed a lot. Rouen is near La Trappe, and the priest in 1971 preached for about 20 minutes on the contemplative life, and something went down my spine. I close that parenthesis. But they were there, formed there, and sent to the missions in Canada. As it happens, the place of martyrdom was to have 10 years later a saint born in it, Kateri Tekakwitha, the lily of the Indians, a pure virgin who has been canonized since. But before we got to that point, a lot had happened. Isaac Jogues was terribly treated, mutilated, in such a way that actually he could never again celebrate Holy Mass. That actually happened in recent times. Father Gandhi, who was in the Irish College in Rome some years ago, and my brethren would have known him, he went back to his area, aware that he was facing possible martyrdom, and they let him finish Holy Mass with the deacon, and as soon as he got from the altar, he was martyred, but with certain niceties. They first started to shoot each one of his fingers for the same motive. Eventually, he was dispensed into the beyond. Our brethren, closer to us in time, in geography therefore. But Isaac Jogues, somehow, even though he'd been by this stage reduced to slavery, literally slavery, managed to wriggle out, actually with help from the outside, and worked his way back across the Atlantic to the Jesuits. Doesn't stop there. Would never celebrate again, completely mutilated. He thought maybe something can be done, nevertheless, even with these stumps. With his stumps, he wrote to the Holy Father, explaining his predicament. The Holy Father was curious, he wanted to know more. And when he was given to know more, his heart warmed and wrote a lovely fatherly rescript back to this hero. He was allowed to celebrate again with his stumps. And so, after receiving that rescript, the following morning, we climbed up the altar steps with the same prayers that we've just said in Fruivo ad altare Dei, with the same fervour that he had at his first Holy Mass. Moved to tears. But didn't stop there. Despite the atrocities and the knowledge of what was ahead, he asked if he could go back. And it was given that he should go back to finish where he'd left off. Now, actually, it seems that these were done in not so much by those they were trying to help directly, but by the adversaries, because there were tribes in here, indigenous tribes. The Iroquois were against the Hurons, and the Iroquois were the ones who did them in, it seems. In an atrocious, atrocious way. I say nothing at all was spared. It doesn't stop there, my friends. I remember talking to my prior one day in Italy. He was French, and he was saying when he was a young man, the challenge of the missions was quite strong. I know actually Bishop Smith had thought of it at one point. He just did visit vaguely, but he pursued the diocese. There was an appeal. People knew it was new territory and it had its dangers. I've had stories, by the way, from a now deceased missionary, Tom Cunningham, Holy Ghost Father, who really knew what it was about. When I was in Rome, I was living with missionaries, and also actually when studying with the Jesuits in Dublin. And in both cases, I had lots and lots of stories coming to me, even at table. Cruelty, danger, sorcery, vengeance, vendetta, poisoning. The witch doctors have huge power out there, you know. And the first evangelization is up against it. Why? The other guy has been holding these places firmly in his grasp for generations. Do you think he's going to let go just like that? I remember being moved one time by what Father Tony said at table. He was a young man doing a sabbatical, and he said he called it the village green, to prepare people to give them absolution before the execution. They were all innocent, he knew. He felt that those bringing them there were probably using them to draw attention away from themselves. They were all 10 of them, immediately machine-gunned into the beyond. And he described what it was like. All because of drugs, apparently, but they were innocent. In Rome, the stories the prior, the rector would come out with, there were many more missionaries there, would make your hair stand on end. He was explaining to us, but actually it's like this. Out here in Rome, there's a huge defense. Every street corner has a church. Rome is full of the Holy Sacrifice being offered all the time. Confessions are out there. Grace is in the air as a shield. It's not the case when you get down to a dark country bathed in animism and sorcery. It's thick fog and darkness from the underworld, and things happen, awful things all the time. That's what you're up against. So bit by bit, they had to work their way, person by person. And do you know that one thing he said? He was by then about 80. He said he wanted to go back and die with his people. That's the true meaning of missions. Not going down to filch vocations for Europe, going down to bring the light of Christ. I make a little jump in the halfway period of England. Do you know that there was something of that there too? The sad thing is that Christians were martyring Christians at that stage, all initially because of the king's problem. But I will never forget how deeply moved I was when I was given the translation into French of the day-to-day diary of one of the potential martyrs in the London Tower, a Jesuit, Father Jerry. Miraculously, we're still able to read that diary, which had been confiscated straight away. It's horrific. I was passing London Tower some years ago, and it all came back to me. What went on in there? Eventually, they warned him, we're going to have to put you to the question. That's the way it was put. That meant interrogation and torture. And they presented to him a page signed by Her Majesty the Queen. He says in his diary it seemed in order. And then he says exactly what they did and how they did it. Makes your hair stand on end. And do you know that he managed with orange juice to get secret messages to the outside to get what was needed to celebrate the Holy Sacrifice in his cell. The Holy Sacrifice was celebrated the same night that we're using here exactly, simpler of course, in the Tower of London more than once, by the wounded limbs that they were torturing, because when they were put in the manacles, they swelled up hugely. This, my friends, is what all submission is about. It's not actually against pure darkness, but incomplete light there. And my friends, now, that's what perhaps we're going to do here in Ireland, which is right now depending on African missionaries and Indian priests to bring back the faith. Do you know that the devil has been trying over the last 20 years to get this last jewel in his crown? And because we're dormant, he is succeeding. I leave you with the thought, my friends. Do you know that a word from you can save a soul? I probably wouldn't be here if it weren't for what happened when I was 12 or 13. Friends started to call me to go to things in school, in the lunch break, Bible studies. And bit by bit I realized that this meant business. The testimony of good Christian teachers and friends can have a huge life-changing effect, and you can do the same. Use your conversations, ask the Holy Ghost for a word, make yourself available in the hands of providence, because a word from you can put people in contact, perhaps with, for instance, a DVD, a YouTube, a book, or something which will do it very well for you. Evidence of the truth of our Catholic faith. They're out there. Don't be shy for Jesus, because you too are called to save souls. And right now, Ireland itself is one of the worst missionary countries of the world. I conclude. All the devil wants is souls. And don't be afraid to point out that certain things lead to certain places. This week I was talking to somebody who has gifts. He knows things. Somebody had died in his area, quite well known in the area for her push against things and for other things. Transgender stuff and all that. He was praying hard for her soul, and he was given to understand she had not made it. Hell, my friends, is for real. And to wake up there because nobody warned them is because we have not succeeded in our mission. Once there, there's no coming back. And we, perhaps,